we mustn't forget about the United Nations conferences, which were exactly referring to the sustainable development. The first conference related to environmental issues was the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, which was held in Stockholm. And some concept of sustainable development was given already then, but it was not named in that way. And in 1992, there was a conference in Rio de Janeiro and in Brazil. And this conference was called the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. So the word development appeared in the name of the conference. So it was not only environment, but development was also important, and sustainable development was obviously the favorite word used at the conference. So since then the word sustainable development became very popular all over the world, and the idea was that the development is not contradict to taking care of environment. So we can develop, we can increase our well-being, increase our income as well, but we do not have to destroy the environment. The results of the 1992 Earth Summit were 3 documents: Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, Agenda 21, and the name Agenda 21 comes from 21st century, and every region had to make their own Agenda 21. So it was an action plan with the regard of sustainable development, and also the document called Forest Principles, and it addressed the issue of deforestation and the problem of the protection of forests, not only tropical rainforests, but also temperate climate forests and also boreal forests. 10 years later, in 2002, there was the Earth Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, South Africa. South Africa is a good place for the Earth Summit because it's a whole world in one country. That's the advertising slogan for South Africa, but in many aspects it's true, because in South Africa you can find problems of all over the world, or problems and good things as well, but like diversity of landscape and the diversity of climate. So it was an advertising slogan, but unfortunately its slogan is also true in case of many political problems and some bad trends in the development of humanity. The summit in Johannesburg was more political than Rio. Rio was more environmental, also political, but environmental mainly. And in Johannesburg, there was a declaration, and the declaration focused on issues such as chronic hunger, malnutrition, also foreign occupation, armed conflicts, drug problems, organized crime, corruption, natural disasters, arms trafficking, also trafficking in persons, terrorism, intolerance, racial, ethnic, religious hatreds, xenophobia, and also chronic diseases, in particular HIV, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. So it was more social. More social aspects were presented, were discussed there. During the conference, Millennium Development Goals were established. As you can see, these goals are mainly social as well. Only one, number 7, ensure environmental sustainability, was strictly related to the environment. 20 years after the Rio 92 summit, there was another summit on sustainable development, and it was also in Rio de Janeiro, and it was called Rio Plus 20. And there were main themes in the summit, and one was green economy and how to achieve sustainable development and lift people out of poverty, and how to improve international coordination for sustainable development by building an institutional framework. So this was basically summit which tried to evaluate what was achieved 20 years after the first Rio conference. In 2015, 17 goals of sustainable development or sustainable development goals were designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. And these 17 goals are supposed to be achieved by 2030 agenda. So that's the idea that by 2030 these goals will be either achieved or at least countries will come very close to these goals. And the goals are, some of them are very ambitious, and it's no poverty, that's number 1. Number 2, zero hunger. 3, good health and well-being. 4, quality of education. 5, gender equality. 6, clean water and sanitation. 7. Affordable and clean energy. 8. Decent work and economic growth. 9. Industry and industry, innovation and infrastructure. 10. Reduced inequalities. 11. Sustainable cities and communities. 12. Responsible consumption and production. 13. Climate action. 14. Life below water. 15. Life on land. 16. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. 17. Partnerships for the goals. As you can see, these goals overlap. For example, reduce inequalities and gender equality. When it's equality according to any characteristics. Or, for example, partnership for the goals, that covers all the goals. No poverty means also zero hunger. So you can see that these goals are also interdependent. The topic of our course is global environmental problems and their local implications. So now I will show you some short movies from local aspects of talking about environmental problems, about sustainable development. And the first part will be one of the conferences organized in our department at the University of Science and Technology, AGH University of Science and Technology. And these will be some shots from the conference, so-called EuroEco Conference on Sustainable Development, organized in Krakow. The EuroEco Conferences were organized for many years, and the organizer was Professor Jan Dobrowolski from the Faculty of Mine Surveying and Environmental Engineering at the AGH University of Science and Technology. And the first conferences started in early 90s, and these shots are from the conference that was held in 2012. As you can see, the conference was international, and all these conferences were international with experts from many countries from all over the world. I am sorry for the poor quality of the sound, but the shots are rather to give you impression about such conferences than to make you understand every word.
We made several courses. We made cooperation education in young scientists, young students in Madrid. the several universities in Madrid, there are 9 like before. They have received a familiar picture. Conferences several times in Krakow for sustainable development promoted by Prof.Jacobs, and we have congregated.
We have in our constitutions and in other official regulations quite different terminology because this sustainable means in Polish language like perpetuum mobile, so we try to translate, for example, professors, the better word is durable or permanent or lasting growth or development. So that is discussed, especially in the macroeconomics. Finishing, I would like also to underline that it is worthy to mention that here in Krakow we established, we funded the Polish Ecological Club.
Thank you very much, Professor Gurka. I would like to very namely, Professor Gurka was the tutor of a very creative voluntary team, scientific Krakow students, and they moved from industrial economy into, let's say, well, sustainable development or whatever you name it, good management of resources of the nation. To refer just briefly to this, let's say, quite good experiences I hope useful in many countries, and we still have to start with motivation for collaboration of experts from different disciplines, not only technical subjects, also social, economical, natural sciences, and many others, as well as cooperation among scientists, practitioners, including decision makers, some kinds of, let's say, social governance possibility in contribution of local stakeholders, local communities. And we still would like to refer to a concept of sociology, scientific aspects, practical sociology. So some kind of integration, theory and practice. And, very important, let's say, democratic approach. Professor Gurka open for all seminars here at this university, announced by Zvinia, and some very famous professors as well as directors of big companies took part, and these seminars were open for all for free discussion. It was very important at this time. The application of technology. And to facilitate that, I'd like to take an example, start with an example which most of you will be familiar with. The example is Apple computers. Apple was founded in a garage, 1975, I'm sure many of you know the story, in what later became known as Silicon Valley by two young men, 25-year-olds, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
I mean, this is the responsibility of academia, and particularly your university is top in the country which is dealing, I mean, to build public awareness, to push the city council, to make decisions, to push the mayor, to ask them why you are not doing this. Because there are some cheap tools, I mean, building freeways, building bridges, huge capital cost. But, we have great software engineers, why not to apply this software? It's cheap. The overpass, when animal is using the overpass, it is forced to cross the artificial barrier, so road,
using objects unnaturally located over the ground, over the level of animal inhabiting the hunting circuit were observed in both under passages and over passages, and the lowest number of animal traces were observed in under passages, and the lowest number of human footprints were observed in over passages. So as you can see, unfortunately, under passages are commonly used by people, so it influenced the use of the animals.
And this is in nature. The evolution of an art, the changing of characteristic, and the disaster at last. And this is, as an example, the evolution on a horse, on the evolution of an aircraft.
Traditional behind, but collected in this way, in large amount, and later on,
poławiacz pyłku. Urządzenie, które służy dzielenia się
and they produce much more active, let's say, biologically active products.
potwory.
You have also samples of this so-called in Polish pierzyn.
Pszczoła umieszcza w komórce plastra.
With interested experts, I hope in China, maybe also in Japan, in different other countries. So there are different possibilities to introduce this really modern technology and well, useful for many regions, I hope, all over the world. In fact, Mr. Tomaszewski would like to introduce this beekeeping system, modern beekeeping system, to Brazil. Not because of forthcoming Olympic Games, maybe also useful, but you see, for prevention against iron deficiency anemia.
The second conference I wanted to show you was the conference held in 2015 in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and this conference was on education on sustainable development. The full name of the conference was the International Conference on the Education for Sustainable Development, Pathways to the Future. So the conference was dealing with the future. And you will also see some shots from the conference and also shots from the cultural program. The conference was organized by the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and there were also participants from Poland at this conference.
They are very, very important. We are living in a changing world. As I said, I may be representing some kind of a last generation here. So my children, they still have grandparents in countryside, but they may be already exception, and so on. So in changing world, and if we want to teach for a change, creativity comes as an extremely important keyword. So hence we have a session on creativity, and also that includes also the teaching methods, creative teaching methods. We cannot, teach in old manners to be creative. We need to be creative ourselves. The other thing, of course, is that ESD is all about values. Hence, we have a session on ethics, because how will we teach the values? And when is it actually something we even should not do?
You know, we live in a world of many crises, social, economic, environmental, and especially ethical. We still don't have that fairer, less troubled and more peaceful world that we were promised with the end of the Cold War. And we are pressing hard up against some very, very important planetary boundaries. And in addition, war and conflict seem to be a constant, and global poverty, natural disasters and tragedies always seem to be with us. Yet, if you believe the statistics from the United Nations, the world is actually fairer, less troubled and more sustainable than it has been for the last several decades. And we saw an indication of that in Kay's presentation of many of the improved conditions in Estonia today. But we must never forget the exceptions. But on the whole, the severest impacts of poverty and the number and the duration of conflicts in the world are actually decreasing. This is actually a result of the human capacity for change. Our ability to learn, our ability to adapt. We're able to trace the causes and effects of our actions. We're able to reflect on these from different ethical perspectives and then to apply our knowledge and values in seeking to address many of the problems we face.
Wrong. It is wrong. It's not just stupid, it's bad. It is morally reprehensible. And the answer to this is knowledge. You need to understand what it is you're dealing with when you're dealing with a cat and when you're dealing with a goldfish. And you need to act accordingly. This is hovering over this challenging background is this ever-present threat of environmental catastrophe. Naomi Klein, the Canadian academic, has just published a book last year, This Changes Everything, which I think is a key text. If you haven't read Naomi Klein's work, I would thoroughly recommend it. She's very readable, very insightful, and she is very positive, which I like. Her positive responses to the threatened environmental catastrophe are perhaps a little questionable. They perhaps are influenced by environmental activists such as this chap, Dr. Stephen Best. I've described him here as not a cheery person. That's an understatement, I think. Now, I've had a quotation from Stephen Best. From his book, The Politics of Total Liberation. Now, I'm sure many of us agree that total liberation sounds like quite a good thing. Freedom is a nice thing. Freedom is something that we fought to defend and fought to extend to people. And I'm absolutely not going to be critical of freedom. But what I would urge everyone to be sceptical about is the particular uses certain political, philosophical thinkers make of these ideas of liberation and freedom. Now listen to what Stephen Best has to say about what total liberation is. He, I believe, rightly contextualizes this century, the 21st century, as a decisive moment in human history. Naomi Klein says this is the last decade of opportunity. This is the window which will close within 10 years if we don't actually act radically now to change our attitudes and behaviors. Then the opportunity is lost.
That's all I wanted to tell you in my series of talks on global environmental problems and their local implications. Thank you for your attention. I wish you a lot of success at the examination and also at your professional careers. And Stay safe. First of all, stay safe.